Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Randall here with Cooking Under Pressure. You got to have an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker by now. I'm sure you do, because we have a recipe that you're going to want to cook in your Instant Pot. It's our 20th video. We're going back to my heritage in New England, and it's a tribute to my mom. She loved Yankee Pot Roast on a Sunday afternoon, but she always did it in the slow cooker. Well, today we're taking that recipe and we're putting it in the Instant Pot. Super simple recipe. We got some tweaks that we're going to do to it, but it's based on my mom's recipe. If you get a chance, please subscribe below, hit the notification bell, and we'll get you all of our updated videos. Thanks for joining us today, and let's get to today's awesome recipe. Our Instant Pot is already heating up. We have an ounce of garlic inside, 2 ounces of olive oil. We're going to saute this chuck roast. It's a 3-pound chuck roast. We've seasoned it in Montreal steak seasoning. So let's put that in. So I've cut this 3-pounder in half. Makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to, you can cut it into cubes if you want, quarter it. It's a 3-pounder chuck roast. But we're going to sear it first, get all of those really good flavors, caramelize this meat, sear it. A lot of people think that searing meat means to seal in the juices, and the more I read about it, the more that is actually not even possible or true. What you're really doing is just caramelizing and flavoring the meat. We're also going to have some nice flavor at the bottom of this. Now that we have seared the meat, we're going to deglaze this. If you saw our Boston butt and our pulled pork, we deglazed it with some wine. We're just going to do the same thing here. Get a brown, nice little sauce you'll see once you mix in the red wine. You can use water as well, but use a wooden spatula, and look at that. Those great little bits come right up. Look at that goodness. Some of the Montreal steak seasoning that has some garlic in it, some onion powder, black pepper, some salt, really adds fantastic flavor. I don't know if you've ever been up to Montreal, but there's old Montreal is gorgeous. It feels like France. It's like going to Europe. Beautiful place. I use Montreal steak seasoning on a lot of my steaks, and I use it for this chuck roast. So look at that. All of that has come up nicely. That only takes about a minute. We just use a red wine. Do not use cooking wine, just a red drinking wine. You may see that again for our cocktail of the day. And the next thing that I'm going to add is 2 onions. You can use sweet onions or just standard white onions. Mix that in together, all that nice flavor. I'm just going to mix that up. This is super simple. It's very traditional. About 8 carrots I just cubed up. Mix those together as well. My mom wasn't a big fan of celery, so she never put celery, but you can add celery if you'd like. But this is a real simple, traditional Yankee pot roast. I like to add about a tablespoon of Worcestershire. So we'll put about a good tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce in there. Again, just mix that up. Get those flavors melded together. Next up, it's kind of my mom's secret weapon. She put in a whole bottle. Back in the day, it was just a glass bottle. I think it was probably about 16 ounces. This one's a little bit more than that. We're not putting a whole bottle of ketchup in our pot roast today, but it adds a great flavor. It was one of my mom's secret little weapons that she put in her Yankee pot roast. And we're gonna probably put in, I would say, close to 1 cup. So I do 2 nice big squeezes there, close to about a cup of any ketchup that you'd like. I like to use Heinz because that's what we grew up with. Now the liquids I've got is just beef. Just got beef stock. We're going to put in 2 cups of beef stock. That would be half of a box of this beef stock. So we're going to squeeze in half a box, 16 ounces of beef stock. And I'm going to put in about a cup more of the red wine. Mix that all together nicely. Oh, look at the colors already popping. And this is such a simple recipe. Now, when we were kids, my mom would put it in the slow cooker. She'd probably put it in for about 8 hours. This total cook time plus resting, we're going to be about at an hour and a half. So we'll put those 2 pieces of meat right in like that. Mix those in and make sure that they're spread out evenly so this can get up to pressure. And then last but not least, what I do is I put my trivet on top and I add these baby potatoes right in the trivet. And maybe a pound or so of baby potatoes. And I just sprinkle a little thyme on top of those and it falls right through. This trivet, this silicone trivet is fantastic. The reason why I'm doing this on top is because if you put the potatoes in with the rest of the vegetables and the juice, if they're in there for an hour, they tend to get really mushy and they almost turn into a paste. But you can put them in foil if you'd like on the top. I found my trivet works perfectly, and I just fold that over, and simple enough. I just close it up. Make sure that the pressure valve is closed. We're going to set this for 65 minutes and let it do a natural release for 10 minutes, and then we're going to open it up and make a quick little gravy out of the juice and have a incredible Yankee pot roast in an hour and a half that would normally take you about 8 hours. Let's get to our cocktail of the day. And for our cocktail of the day, we already put some wine inside the Yankee pot roast. Let's talk about this Pinot Noir. Noble Vines from Monterey. It's a Pinot Noir. It is cherry flavored, chocolatey flavored. It is one of our favorite Pinot Noirs. You can obviously cook with it in the Yankee pot roast, but we mostly drink with it. Make sure when you put the wine inside the Yankee pot roast that you do not use cooking wine. I know I mentioned that, but just a reminder. This is one of our favorite wines. Wine goes perfectly with pot roast. You've got a beef chuck in there. It is cooking already. This is going to be ready. We're going to have a fantastic meal in a little bit over an hour. Cheers. All right, welcome back. We have cooked for 65 minutes. Took a little over 20 minutes to get up to pressure. There's so many ingredients in here and it's pretty packed. And we hit 10 minutes and did 10 minutes natural release, and then we just did a forced release. So the pressure indicator has dropped, and we're going to open this up. I'm telling you, it smells like a Sunday in here. You know that Sunday afternoon smell when your mom is cooking something that everyone loves? Reminds me back home in New Hampshire. So I've got these potatoes right on top of the trivet. This trivet isn't even hot. And look at those potatoes. Perfect. They're like little golden nuggets. They didn't get mushy. and it works out really well when you put that little trivet on top. And this looks amazing. Just like back home, look at this meat, how tender that is. We're just gonna spoon that out. Look at those beautiful chunks of meat. Oh, I know. 65 minutes is just about right for a 3-pounder. If you have anything bigger than that, you might want to cook it a little bit longer, and it really depends on the size of your pressure cooker. If you're using an 8-quart, it might take a little less time, might take a little bit more, but if your meat is not cooked, you can always put the lid back on, get it back up to pressure, and do another 10-15 minutes. Look at those yummy vegetables. Got a couple more pieces of meat here at the bottom that fell off because they're so tender. Just going to scoop those in and put that in like that. Now at this point, what I do is I turn the pressure cooker back onto saute, and what we do is, if you like it wet, that's fine. I like to create a gravy, and by making a gravy, I make a nice little cornstarch slurry. I make that with about half a cup of water and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. We just popped it back on saute, and what we will do is just leave the vegetables. You can see what's nice is the carrots keep their form, and the onions, look at how perfect those onions are. It's nice that we left the potatoes on top, so they're nice little nuggets, as I mentioned. So we're going to just pour that slurry right in. We've got that on saute right now, and probably in about 3 to 5 minutes it'll start bubbling, and we will have a gravy that there's 2 things you can do with this. You can just pour it directly over the meat, or what you can do is you can put the meat back in to soak up in the gravy for 10-15 minutes before you serve it out on your dinner table for your family and kids, and it will be fantastic. So that's been about 3 minutes. You can see it boiling and getting really thick, which is great. And if you look over here, our meat is resting a little bit, but look at how tender this meat is, just pulling apart. I mean, it's a little bit like our pulled pork, just gets so tender in the Instapot. You can just pull it apart and leave the chunks. So what I do at this point is I just take my potatoes and just toss them in from the trivet. Spread those around a little bit and dig out some of the carrots and the onions. Pour that right on top. There's still a couple more chunks of meat inside. Those perfect carrots, nice and firm. And remember, folks, this would take 7-8 hours, 10 hours in the slow cooker. This is 1 hour and 30 minutes to make a Sunday meal. We're going to drizzle that gravy right over the top of that meat. The longer you let this sit, it'll thicken up a little bit more. Perfect Yankee Pot Roast. All right, we're going to get a quick bite of this. Potato is perfect. Carrot, can't get it any better than that. The firmness, as well as the meat, super tender, melts in your mouth. People always ask, why do they call it Yankee Pot Roast? Well, a standard pot roast is just the chuck roast that you cook sear. The meat itself is your pot roast, but with a Yankee pot roast, you add the root vegetables, whether it's celery, parsnips, turnips. We did not add those. We just went with the traditional potatoes, carrots, and onions. And honestly, that is all you need to make a perfect traditional Yankee pot roast. Thanks for joining us today. Stay safe. I remember when I was a kid, I always asked my mom, why didn't they call it a Red Sox pot roast? As always, if you ain't cooking under pressure, you ain't cooking. We'll see you next time. Love you, Ma.